It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
So I participated in Chicago's bookstore crawl, and let's recap the weekend. So if you don't know what I'm talking about by saying bookstore crawl, don't worry. I didn't really know either before this, but I learned quickly. So what is Chicago's bookstore crawl? It's a day where independent bookstores in Chicagoland kind of come together. It's a way to promote these independent bookstores and boost business and get their names around. However, it's important to note that it's not just something where it's like, start here at point A and then you're going to end at point Z eventually. Just follow this map. It's not like that, because there are 55 participating bookstores in the Chicagoland area. So even if you wanted to, it would be impossible to go to all 55 of them in one day. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. And they don't really give you a starting point to figure it out. Now, they do have some options. You could have purchased this very specific bus pass where this bus was just taking people to the various bookstores. However, at the time that we looked, the tickets for that were already sold out. They also had a bike path where you could pay a little fee and they would tell you like which way to go on your bike so you could be as efficient as possible in the bike lanes getting to the bookstore in a way that made sense. We did not do either of those things. We kind of just winged it a little bit, but it worked out. Listen. So how did this all come about? Well, Friday, the day before, Chloe Moriando was having a concert and we had tickets. We were going. In fact, I bought merch. It was a fun time, wonderful concert. But then, since we were already gonna be there Friday night, we got a hotel room so we could start bright and early the next day for this bookstore crawl. But after the concert on Friday night, we A, had to get some cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory, and then B, had to plan out the day for Saturday. So what did that look like? What were we doing? Well, we honestly didn't know. So we already had to pay for parking for the concert, and then we had to pay for parking again for the hotel. So we knew if we took the car, yes, some of these bookstores were kind of in clusters, but at most you could get 2 to 3 before you would need to either drive and park the car again somewhere else, which would mean buying more parking spaces throughout the day, which just seemed like it would add up to a lot of money. Another thought is leave the car where it was and just use Uber. But again, we would have to be Ubering multiple times, so we're like, does this really make sense? I don't know. Well, for a one-day pass to go on the CTA line, it's $5 for one-day pass per person. Otherwise, it's $2.50 per ride. So buying that for $5 was way easier, especially since it also helped us map out the bookstores that we wanted to go to, because then we would just be going to the ones that were in line with these tracks that made the most sense. And that's exactly what we did. Now, this whole day also has some incentives to go to these stores, because other than being able to experience new stores and explore and all of that, the other incentives that they do to entice people is if you go to at least 10 of the stores within that day, you get a 10% off coupon that is valid for the whole year. And then if you do the same thing but go to 15 stores, you get a 15% off coupon. Now what we did is we did the 10. We officially completed going to 10 of those stores and we got that 10% off coupon. But it was hard to do. I feel like if you want to do 15, you absolutely could do it, but you would have to start right away and you would have to be like, I have to get to these bookstores in order to do it, because it was hard to get to the 10, let alone 15. But we did it. Okay, we went to 10, and let's talk about the 10 that I went to. Now, it's important to note, neither of us had ever been to any of these bookstores before, ever. This was all new. We had no idea what to expect with any of these bookstores. So we didn't really know which ones would be like the better ones or not, or what to expect. We had no idea. I did have a little bag with me because I knew obviously if we're buying books and we're going to be walking around a lot, I definitely needed something to carry them. However, it did also unfortunately mean that like the beginning bookstores that we went to in the front end of the day probably wouldn't be buying that many books because I'd have to haul them around all day. You gotta have some logic in there. I didn't want to do that to my back. Since we didn't know which bookstores were like the really good ones to us, we didn't really know if like the first one we went to was the best one, so should we have bought the books that we wanted to there then, or should we hold out? We didn't really know. We just kind of winged it. So what was our first stop? Well, our first stop was Sandmeyer's bookstore. It was packed. There were so many people in it. I was so happy because since neither of us had done this before, we had no idea how many people participated. We kind of just saw this posted on their website, but we didn't really see how much traction it was getting. We had no idea. But clearly a lot of people do because it's a yearly thing, and this bookstore had a lot of people in it. This was also the bookstore where the bike path started, so if you had wanted to do that, a lot of people were coming to this bookstore in particular. We just happened to go that way first, or luck, I guess. But the vibes, immaculate. They had free donuts that you could get as like a little sample. Very good. They also had a DJ in the middle, bringing the vibes out even more. It was a wonderful bookstore. It really was. But since it was our first stop of the day, I didn't really want to buy a book right out the bat because it was kind of a lot. So I wound up getting this postcard. Oh, that's upside down. I got this postcard. So I thought that was really cool and I hadn't seen this postcard before. Thought that was really fun. I kind of wish I had bought a book there because it turned out to be one of the top ones of the whole day. I really, really like Sandmeyer's, and if I was doing this bookstore crawl again, I would be sure to come back to this bookstore. So for reference, I am putting this at third. I am ranking all of these after we go through them, and this was my third favorite. So it was pretty up there. I really liked it. Our second stop was Exile in Bookville. Now, this was a little bit harder to find because it was in a building that had other stuff going on, and it was also on a second floor and all of this. Now, granted, for us, it was easy to find because it was the bookstore crawl day, so there was a lot of traction going to this place. It was really easy to follow the crowds. However, I feel like on a regular business day, it might be a little hard to find if you didn't know where you were going. It was a cool little place. It was kind of small. Think of it more like 3 small rooms that all connected to form this bookstore. So there were points where the rooms connected where you kind of had to wait your turn to get through because there were a lot of people coming in and out. So it definitely was packed and not a lot of room to go around. But they also had a record section as well, so it wasn't just books. I mean, it was primarily books, don't get me wrong, but they did have that little bit of extra if that was more your thing. It was definitely cool. I liked it. But as cool as some of the other ones that we're about to get into, I'm putting this one at 8. Now don't get me wrong, even on this top 10 list, all of the bookstores were good. It's just I'm ranking of the good ones. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong, Exile in Bookville was super cool. However, I am putting it at 8th place. And also, this might be a good time to pause and talk about how did we keep track of the bookstores that we went to, like what was going on, like what was happening, what do we do here? Well, they had this cute little pamphlet that all of these bookstores carried, so it didn't really matter which bookstore you started with, they would have one to give you. It looked like this. It has a little introduction at the top telling you the incentive. It has names of the bookstores down here on the front and the back, and then on the inside is where you can see how we kept track of everything. Some bookstores had a sticker, some just used their initials, some had a stamp, it kind of depended, but they had spots for all 15. If you did make it to 15, they had a little I Spy game. You could write down the bookstores that you actually went to. It was a cute little pamphlet. There were also a number of these stores that were like a 15 to 20 minute walk from each other, and we would often just decide to make that walk rather than jumping back on the CTA because the 15 minutes was worth it. We'll get our steps in and we'll just do it. That was really fun because first of all, the weather was on our side. It was a little chilly at first, but when you're walking that much and you're kind of sweating from like walking so much and doing all of that, the weather turned out perfect. It helped to balance everything out, so I wasn't really cold. I was able to just wear this the whole day and be good. It was nice. It was also nice to see some new areas of Chicago. There were some areas where I have walked a bunch before and I've seen it, but I mean, it's still fun to see again, but I have seen it before. But going to some of these other bookstores and walking to so many different places, I was able to see like new parts of Chicago I hadn't, and that was just like an extra cherry on top, you know? But our third stop was Afterwords Bookstore. For some reason, I keep wanting to say Afterworlds, but that doesn't make sense. It's Afterwords. Now this was a new and used bookstore, and it had 2 stories. It had the main floor and then the basement, and the basement was a lot bigger than I anticipated. I was pleasantly surprised, and the used books were kind of just mixed in with the new, so you kind of had to dig a little bit and find, which was kind of part of the fun. I would go to this bookstore again, and I ranked it 6. Still good, but there are some heavy hitters to come, okay? What's up, buddy? My cat. Come here. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. Come here, come here. Yeah. Say hi to the camera, Sabi. This is my old man. He's 18 years old. Yeah. Do you want to chill with me while I finish the video? Yeah? No? Maybe? Here, lay next to me. There you go, buddy. There you go. No? You don't want that? Okay. He has spoken. Our 4th stop was Newberry Bookshop, and this was my favorite of the day. If I do this again next year, I will 100% make it back to Newberry. It was wonderful. It was similar to Exile and Bookville in terms of it was in another building where other stuff was going on. However, you walked in and right to the right was where this bookshop was. And of course, I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't gone to any of these places, but I was blown away. I loved it. It was kind of small, and they had some like niche sort of books in terms of maybe history or mythology, kind of things like that. But that's right up my alley. And so I loved it. They had a bunch of really cool stuff. They had some really funky cards. They had some beautiful notebooks. They even had a table that was 50% off discounted. And the 50% off prices were pretty good. And it was like notebooks, cards, some books. There was a whole variety. And in the back corner, they even had a used section where I found a paperback of a book called Back in a Spell. And it was priced at $3, which I thought was really good. Like, yes, I know it's used, but I thought that was really good for a Chicago bookstore. So I snatched it right up. That was amazing. They also had a section of older books that they basically turned into, you know, those boxes that are fake books and you open it up and box inside. They used real books and turned them into those and were selling those as well, which was pretty cool. They also had, check this out, look at this. I thought this was so cool. I wasn't even really paying attention to this section of the shelf, but when I saw it, I stopped in my tracks, picked it up and was like, oh yeah, I'm buying this. I love it. I want to fill it out. No words other than take my money. It was wonderful. The staff was also really, really nice. The vibes immaculate. Absolutely ranked #1. As we were walking to the next bookstore, I did pass an ice cream shop and subsequently got ice cream. We happened to walk past it after it had been open for approximately 1 minute. So we were the first customers, but I have no regrets. It was delicious. Our 5th stop of the day is called Slant of Light Books. Similar to Afterwards, I want to forget the name or call it something else because it's just hard for me to remember. Slant of Light Book. That's what it was called. It was down some stairs and then there it was. When you walked right in, to the left was a nice little seating area for conversation, reading books, all of that. The rest was obviously, the bookstore part. They had a nice variety. They had a small discount section in the back. And at this point, now we were halfway through. This was our 5th stop, and I realized I hadn't really bought that many books, and we were halfway through. This was a bookstore crawl. I needed to change that. So I bought this. Look at the beautiful sprayed edges. I love the cover art. I love the colors going on in general. I really liked it. I haven't read this book before. I've read Ruby Dixon before, but I haven't read this book before, and I was like, yeah, you know what? This is the book I'm getting. And I'm still very pleased with that decision. Overall, I would put Slant of Light at 4th. Really good. I liked it. As we were walking to the next place, I did happen to pass this sign for a vintage place, and it made me giggle, so I took a picture. But our 6th stop was called Unabridged Bookstore. And the entire store, in celebration of Independent Bookstore Day, was 10% off. And I don't know if other people knew about this 10% off discount like beforehand, or if this was just a really popular store in general, because this one was packed. Not to say these other ones weren't, because every single store had a lot of foot traffic going on in it, but this one was packed. There were so many people coming in and out of it. And this one was similar to that Exile and Bookville in terms of small rooms making up a bigger store. However, this one had a bunch of rooms. There were probably like 8 rooms that all connected. And that was really fun and made it feel more like I was actually exploring. They even had a downstairs section as well too, so it was 2-story. And they had all kinds of books. Any genre you could want, really. And I found a couple things from there. So first of all, I found this guy, which I love the size of it. It's like a little trinket, but in book form. And it's about mythology. I loved it. I hadn't seen this book before in any other bookstore, so I had to buy it immediately, which I did, and it was wonderful. The other book I got was Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I would show you. However, it is currently holding this camera that I am recording with, so you're just gonna have to trust me on that one. But overall, I enjoyed this bookstore so much, I am placing it at 2nd place. Our 7th stop was called Uncharted Books. So we have Unabridged and we have Uncharted. This one was Uncharted Book. This one had used books as well, but it was a little on the smaller side. Not like that's a bad thing, but just from the fact that we had just came from Unabridged, it felt a little small. However, the vibes in there were very interesting. Like they had a lot of interesting decor choices that were kind of funky. I liked that. Like, what's going on with this? I don't know, but it's up my alley. I will rank it at #9. The next bookstore, I honestly didn't super know what to expect because it was just called Women and Children First. It wasn't called like Women and Children Books or Bookstore or Bookshop. It was just called Women and Children First. So I didn't really know what to expect with that name. It's just like a feminist bookshop because it was pretty big and they had all kinds of books. From children's books to history books to self-help they had all sorts of genres. It just happened to be catered towards women and children, right? Makes sense. Women and children first. Checks out. And interestingly enough, this was the only bookstore that required a mask. Yeah? Do you have something to say? I know what you want. You want that. You wanna Lay between my legs. Interestingly enough, this was the only bookstore that required masks. Now, we did not know this, and we didn't bring any masks with us. However, they kind of anticipated this for a lot of their shoppers because they had masks ready to go right at the front. So we grabbed some, we put them on, and we continued shopping as normal. Because, of course, we followed and respected their rules. But it was a fun, cute place. I would put it at number 5. Our 9th stop was called the Understudy. Now this was a cafe and bookstore in one. Now we had originally planned to get a drink at the cafe so we could sit down and chill for a second because we had done a lot of walking at this point. However, this place was very popular and I'm not kidding that there were 0 seats available. There was nowhere for us to sit, so we wound up not getting a drink because we wanted to sit more than we wanted the drink. You know what I'm saying? So unfortunately we didn't get to do that. However, we still explored the bookshop side. I did really like how it was very clearly divided on here's the cafe and here's the bookstore. However, it was open enough that any customer can do both of those things without feeling alienated to one side or the other. So it definitely had the vibes of a place that would host like a poetry night, if that makes sense. It was very fun, it was very cute. Overall though, I didn't get to experience the cafe. However, that's not necessarily a bigger pull for me. Some people would probably think the cafe is a huge plus, but ultimately I'm more interested in the books, and the book side was fun, but kind of small. Overall, I would place it at number 7 in this ranking. Now at this point, both of us were pretty tired. We had been walking all day, we'd gotten in so many steps. Did we really need that 10th one? Because we were at 9 so far. Because ultimately, neither of us live in Chicago enough to actually use this coupon. So even if we got it, would we use it within the year to get that 10% discount? Most likely not. But it was more on if we wanted to achieve that. And we ultimately decided we did. We wanted that 10% off coupon more as an achievement than anything else. So we were determined to get to that 10th bookstore. And what was the 10th bookstore? Well, it was called Jarvis Square Books. And conveniently, it happened to be located right next to one of the exits of the CTA line. So that was wonderful. We got to hop off there and not walk that far at all before we were inside. Now this one was really small and pretty packed. So we didn't get to look at as many books as we probably would have liked, but also we were pretty tired at that point too. So we were kind of over the whole shopping part because we were tired. However, we got that final stamp and we got that coupon. It's just this. It's nothing fancy, but we did it. And also, interestingly enough, at any bookstore, you could pick up that pamphlet that I showed you earlier. So ultimately, it didn't matter what bookstore you started as your number 1 stop. You could still get a pamphlet and try to hit your 10 or 15 stops and all of that. However, at this bookstore, they had this as well, which is called Midwest Indie Bookstore Roadmap. And I didn't notice this at any of the other bookstores. I only saw it at this Jarvis one, which I thought was pretty interesting. So we took one and we were gonna look at it later. So by the time we got home, I opened this up thinking, oh, I live in the Midwest. Maybe this map will show me other indie bookstores that are closer to me than Chicago is. That would be pretty cool. Well, you open it up. It's pretty big. You got this art. Can't even see it all on the camera, but you get the feel. But then on the back, it has this roadmap where it's split up into states, but it lists a bunch of independent bookstores. So maybe you would eventually support them as well. Well, I live in Indiana, not Illinois. Indiana is most certainly considered the Midwest. Indiana is not on this list at all. Apparently, there are 0 independent bookstores in Indiana, according to this. So that was a little bit of a bummer because you couldn't come up with any from Indiana to put on this list at all. Okay, but I got it. I got the 10 stamps. I got this weird pamphlet. I got the coupon. I got some fun books. I spent the whole day with a very good friend, went to a concert with them, had a great time. It was a really fun experience. We knew we kind of wanted to hit those 10 bookstores, but we didn't really have a set plan on which bookstores do we want to hit, how diligent do we want to be about it, all of that. And it was really nice to have a loose plan. We want to hit these 10 bookstores, but how are we going to hit them? We don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll wing it. We'll stop for ice cream along the way. We'll do some fun other stuff. It was just a really fun day exploring Chicago and various bookstores with a friend, and I really, really enjoyed it. I would absolutely do it again. And if you happen to have an opportunity to participate in the bookstore crawl next year, I highly recommend. It was really fun, and it was also just really, really nice to see so many people participating in it, because how many people we had passed on sidewalks, whether they were walking with us or towards us, wherever they were going, whatever, so many people were holding up these pamphlets. And I love that. You could recognize all the people who are participating participating in the bookstore crawl by those pamphlets, and so many more people participated than I expected. Well, I guess that's not true. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but I was just pleasantly surprised at just the amount of people that were there and that were thriving and having fun, and I hope all the bookstores had a wonderful time and got a lot of business, and so many more people learned about them. And I just want to reiterate again, my top 10 list, all of those bookstores were good. Just because one of them got 10th place does not mean it was bad. It just means there were some damn good ones that I ran into on that day, because all of them were really fun. And it's also really nice that since 55 were participating this year, that technically next year when we do it again, we don't necessarily have to go to those same 10 bookstores at all. We could go to a whole different part of Chicago and do completely different 10 different ones and experience 10 brand new ones. And that's just so fun. It just really felt like the book community was a community that day. You know what I mean? And it was wonderful. It warmed my heart. But anyway, I have to go. My cat is demanding to be fed and I must oblige him. So it is what it is. But thank you so much for watching. I had so much fun and I hope I can inspire some of you to check it out next year.